Welcome to my third video. This video is basically going to be an advanced steel kind of a workflow secrets video, if you will. I've discovered that the railing macro is a pretty powerful thing for a lot of other uses besides just railing, and I wanted to give you guys an example of what I'm talking about here. Let me get to my example files. If you hear any noise in the background, we've got a lot of rain here, so it's going to sound a little odd. But anyway, what I have here is just some standard pieces of tubing, or some some square bar here, and they're just basically dummies to mount or to use the rail macro. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the Sunshade version of the rail macro. Now, I recently had a huge job with a bunch of sunshades on them, some aluminum stuff, and I've modeled stuff in the past on different programs, and basically because I had so many different lengths and so many different conditions that I had to create some kind of a way to do this faster, because I didn't want to sit there and cut and paste and manually array things, and it would have just been a huge pain in the butt. So basically I came up with a way to use the railing macro that's pretty ingenious, and for different types of applications, like for instance for the louvered vent application, there's very little manual modeling that has to go in afterwards. For the Canopy application, there's a little bit more work to do, but let me show you. Let me start off by showing you the Sunshade application here that I've adapted to the railing system to. And one of the first things you want to do, since this is going to be a horizontally mounted part, you're going to want to orient your UCS to the piece so that your Z is kind of facing front towards you. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to place it at the object, and let me just kind of rotate that to get top up. All right, so now I've got this UCS in the proper position. I'm going to go ahead and select my railing macro, select the object, and go to the midpoint here, and come over here. Hit no, I don't want to use that, any other nosing or anything. And what it's going to do is it's going to come up with, let me select my, it's a Belltower, it was the job called Belltower, but it's a Sunshade. Now, you'll notice here that this is ultra cool, because what it does is it basically populates the entire model with my custom profiles, and at the proper angle also. And it's basically using this as a dummy to create the piece. Now, obviously, this is just simply the railing macro being altered, with the custom profiles, and just putting it in a different orientation as far as the universal coordinate system goes. I'm going to go ahead and get in the macro, and I'll show you what I did. Basically, what you have here is my posts are an EMS aluminum extrusion. They've got the part number attached to them, and among other things, and it's a 6x2x1/4 aluminum tube. The post layout with these, again, like any other railing deal, you're going to want to, you can either prefer max distance between posts, or you can, select the number of posts you want. It's really up to you. Also, you get to select, obviously, your move and start base point. So these are basically the posts right here, okay, and they represent those the frame members. And if you'll notice here, on the handrail part of it, the top of the handrail represents a 6x2x1/8 aluminum tube, and that's this one right here, okay. And you notice here on the middle handrails, I have basically the middle handrails are the airfoils themselves, okay. And I've got my distance to the bottom, which is set so that it's the correct distance for this particular angle. And then I've got my number of middle handrails, which are basically the airfoils, and then the distance between each of them. And again, if it's not a pre-punched item and you're using, you're shop welding these things, then you'll be able to decide what kind of distance you want there. Now, as far as the post connection go, you can actually use, you know, a plate if you want with bolts, if that's what you need. I mean, usually, in what I did here is I created for this particular job, I created a custom component, and that was my connector to the existing structural. And again, here if you run into the problem, let's say you want to go to a beam and you run into a problem where your anchors aren't extending all the way through. If it's a through bolt application, all you have to do is you click on those and you just basically finish the calculation gap. And you notice here that it goes through. But let's get back to another example here. I'm going to take those plates off, and I'll show you my custom connection for this particular deal. I got this little kitty that's going crazy here. If you hear a little cat in the background. But I've got this this custom component that I created for this particular job, and this sunshade system was mounted to an 8x8. So let me show you that. And again, we still have the macro active here. It's not exploded or anything. And this connection, there were two sides to it, so that the bolts could be inside on both ends. So go ahead and double click that. And in fact, I have to use the shaded mode to be able to use this, so I can see the system line of the tube that I'm connecting to. That's my my reference point. Anyway, so we're going to select this 2x6 and then the system line, and then we have the connection is set up. Holes in the tubes. This particular plate arrangement is a welded steel plate. Yeah, let me select that. This assembly. This is basically the assembly, and that's a threaded plate for installation with stainless bolts. Anyway, getting back to the other setup, what you do here is with these custom connections, you can go ahead and use your joint copying tools to apply them to the rest of the model. So let me do that real quick. I'm going to select the connection part. I'm going to go over to this guy right here, and you can continually do that one after the other without having to go back to it. Now this one right here, it's going to require that we use one that has opposite end bolts on it. So we're going to go ahead and have a look at the picture. That's this one right here. And again, these see the difference here as they are opposite ended or mirrored. Select the 2x6 and then boom, there we go. All right, if you notice here, we've got our connection set up. The bolts are ready to rock, and saved a massive amount of time. Now, I haven't created a drawing style for these yet, but I will here shortly when I get ready to roll this out to the shop. But basically, what you have to wind up doing once you get your stuff on there, you're going to have to explode or delete the macro, the joint box, and you're going to have to assign model roles to your specific drawing style, and that's really easy to do. I mean, you just basically mirror select, or you can use the model browser to select and create those model roles. Anyway, that's a very useful tool. Now, also when you're in this orientation, let's say that you're doing some modeling, and let's say your UCS is up. When you use the joint copy tool, you don't have to set the UCS on at the right orientation after you get the first one in. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to select this joint box, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And it says select object, so I'm going to select this guy right here. Go to the midpoint, and then over here. Now it's asking me if I want to have select a nosing point relative to the start point. No, I don't need to. And you'll notice here that we're at the correct orientation, and you can keep going with this thing. And then, like I said, the beautiful thing about this is it creates, a perfect sunshade, based on your profiles, and you get to decide, the post spacing and all that kind of stuff. I mean, let's say that I wanted to take this part right here, and I wanted to stagger the post spacing much closer, or the frame spacing, if you will. Then all I have to do is go to my posts and post layout, and let's say I wanted a 12-inch distance between each. hit 12, and then you're going to see a max distance of 12. And again, awesome. You know, you don't have to do any kind of crazy modeling or anything. This is all just rock and roll, ready to go. And again, you can use the plate addition to this macro, or you can have your own custom connection of however you're going to connect them. But that's a very cool thing. All right, so what I'm going to do next, I'm going to show you the Louvered vent system. And that's a very little manual modeling going here, but you do have to explode the macro after you get your length on there. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure my my UCS is in the world position. I'm going to come up here, go to the railing macro, select this object, which is my little dummy. This will probably be like a 12 foot louver. Don't want to do the nosing point. Now you'll notice here it just comes up with kind of some arbitrary thing that was probably the last used with this particular profile. So I'm going to go with the Belltower multi-shutter, okay? And what this is going to do for me is give me like this is literally a 95% finished louver. Now obviously in the rail macro you can decide your height and all that kind of thing. And like when I'm looking at this, I'm going to want to put another intermediate in there. So this is a post, basically. The railing macro is telling you this is a post. Going to go to the post layout, and again, I'm working on a number of posts here instead of max distance. I'm going to go with 4, and there we go. Look at that. And these louver blades are all the way through. Now this is a punch channel, basically, is what it is. Now, if you'll notice here, there's two things that we have to fix. Once you get your thing laid out, your distances and your lengths and heights, you notice that this cuts all the way through per the macro, and you'll also notice that on the back here there's some cuts, which is basically, this is basically your kick plate, but I've got the profile programmed in there. That's basically the exact profile of the EMS extrusion that's comes with this louver system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the macro box, okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and go to a top view. Get there. All right. I'm going to select this guy, and I'm going to basically show all the beam features at this point. That's my custom button here that activates, you know, the beam features on any model that I select. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select the features that are cutting into the bottom piece, which is a piece that's created by the kick rail or the kick plate feature in the macro. I'm going to delete those, and I'm also going to grab these where the macro is cut all the way through these posts. I'm going to grab those, and I'm going to basically change the length or the side that they're cutting on. Right now, I'm going to change the boundary is what I'm going to do. So if I hit side 1, what it does is it takes those away because it's no longer an infinite boundary. Do you know what I'm saying? And anyway, I'll go over to the other one, and I'll select that and go to the advanced properties, and that's selecting every one of those cuts, by the way. It's kind of a multi-select deal. And I'm going to, on side 2 of this particular one, I'm going to create it to where it sees 13/16 as a boundary and no longer infinite. And what that does for me is it gives me that nice looking normal end frame. Now you'll notice too here the kick frame, or excuse me, I call it the kick frame, but it's actually the kick plate that's in the macro. It is now a solid piece, which is the way that you would manufacture this thing. Now the only other thing that we have to do here is, instead of these profiles here that wouldn't really represent what you're going to be using during fabrication, we're going to create, or I'm going to go ahead and grab these and change them to the center mullion profile, okay? And that's one of the custom profiles that I've created for this particular louver system. Anyway, center mullion, there's a part number for it. And when I select that, if you'll notice now, then we've got this center mullion. And again, the louver spacing here is exact per spec. I mean, my guys are going to be buying the stuff pre-punched, but at least when we start to lay it out, I'm going to have the exact dimensions of the proper sizes to where we know this stuff's going to work, and we won't have guys doing any guesswork as far as the layout goes, because like I said, these louvered blades are, you know, they're a certain distance on center from the factory as far as the punch goes. So what they do is they'll just slide these through, and like I said, we have the entire louver system with very minimal modeling. The macro does all the work for you. And again, once you create your drawing style for this, you're going to have to go in there and you're going to have to change your model rolls, but that's okay. I mean, let's face it, it saves you a hell of a lot of time. Now here's another thing that we can do with that louvered vent or the shutter system is go ahead and select this guy. We'll make a smaller one here. I'm going to go over here to the library, select my Belltower single shutter, which is a smaller one, and excuse me. All that is basically a single shutter. It's set to where there's only 2 posts and there's no mid post. Anyway, again, we have the same conditions here. We're going to delete this macro box, and then we're going to do a top view. Select all the components. Show beam features. Get rid of the lower profiles cutting features, and then also again select the cuts that are on the outside frame, and we're going to create we're going to select the boundary for it so that it doesn't have an infinite boundary and cut through everything. Same here. Alright, and then we're good to go as far as the basic setup of the thing. Okay, you'll see here. Now what I'm going to do at this point, a lot of these shutter systems, they actually come with hinges, okay? And the hinges up top are kind of an extrusion, so you basically have a male and a female part, okay? So after you explode the macro, what you want to do, let's say I want to put a hinge on this thing, and I'll show you how I do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this profile. I'm going to go to my Bahama EMS Bahama Colonial Blade profile, and then I'm going to create or grab instead of the regular horizontal, I'm going to grab the female hinge. Okay, that may be the one I need. Hang on a second, we'll see. Nope, that's not the one I need. Hang on. I'm going to go to the male hinge. Now what I have to do, since this is oddly positioned here, I have to go over and go ahead and go to the actual center part of it. That's the way the macro would have laid that in there as well. And unfortunately, when you pick this while you have the macro set up, it will offset it, and it's just a pain in the butt to try to mess with it. So I just we'll go ahead and select the basic profile, and then I'll add this later. But at this point, now I have this nice you know, female part, or excuse me, the male part of this hinge. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this in place, okay? I'm going to copy it, and then I've already copied it, all right? So if you notice here, if we do the multi-select, there's actually 2 beams here, okay? I'm going to copy that guy, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to select the copy. I'm going to go to Advanced Properties. I'm going to change that one to the female hinge, okay? Now what that does, because when I created this profile, I created the reference point down, so that it, you know, I basically created these together and made and then after I was done positioning them properly in the profile layout, I went ahead and obviously deleted the geometry of this bottom one. But if you'll notice here, the way that comes in there, it's pretty much effortless. It's placed in the proper area. So at this point, what you can do is you can grab this entire assembly, and let's say if you've got a 30-degree tilt, you can rotate this thing into a 30-degree placement. And you know, I have custom components that are, you know, the standoffs, or the what do you call them, the telescopic supports for these things. So I mean, really, the sky is the limit as far as what you can do with custom components and that kind of thing. But anyway, this is a real simple way to create the Hinge setup for this without having to do a bunch of modeling, pulling points, and repositioning stuff. As long as you're creating your profiles, your custom profiles intelligently, you can, you know, look ahead and think about what you need there. So this is an extremely simple way to do this. Now, again, we're going to go over here and we're going to try the more complex one that needs a little bit more manual intervention. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and put my USC or UCS at the object. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and correct to go top there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my rail macro, select the object, and go over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to set it up for the Canopy system, okay? And basically it's already set up that way. So this was the Canopy system. Now if you notice here, you know, these extrusions are, you know, these are custom extrusions for a Canopy system. It's basically has a built-in drainage gutter, okay? And, you know, the way this is set up, that the railing macro is only going to see one side. It's only going to give you one choice of rotation, basically, for the post. So if you'll notice over here, this one is going to be out of position, okay? And again, the same theory goes here. You know, these are the posts, this is the top rail, and this guy right here is actually the bottom rail, or one of the middle rails, because it doesn't need to be the kick plate. Now the pickets in this case are the these I guess you'd call them pans. They're the pans that are mounted on top of the or screwed on top of the extruded gutter system. Now if you notice here, I'm going to go ahead and go to a top view here, and I'm going to show you something here. Right now this gutter system is or the pans are too low. This is the actual shelf to the extrusion, okay? So what we're going to have to do, and I've set up the macro where it knows, as far as these quote pickets go, it knows there's a 6-inch distance, and it's got to have a certain distance from the actual end post to be able to get your proper centerline measurements to where the stuff all matches together. But that's once you start to mess around with it, you'll figure it out yourself. So what I gotta do at this point is I'm gonna go ahead and explode this macro, okay? And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna mirror this part. Okay, don't have to do anything to it other than just mirror it. Now, if you notice here, now we're in a good situation because it's correct like the other one. And here you'll notice this one's good. Now this back one here is not in a correct orientation. Okay, let me just kind of show you this. It's upside down. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this guy. We're going to get it to where we need to get it. Now that it's rotated, it's actually backwards, so we're going to mirror it. Okay, so now we're in good shape. You notice here. Now what I'm going to do is, the macro did some kind of funky cuts here. I'm going to go ahead and show beam properties here, and I'm going to go and give me some line mode here. I'm going to delete this guy. Go over here and delete this cut out of here. And get back to the regular deal. Now I'm not going to bother lengthening this at this time. I'm just going to go ahead and use the macro that's going to give me a miter. And you notice here, boom, look at that. That's awesome. And you're going to go over here, same thing, man. Do the miter. I got a cat again. Crazy little cat. Anyway, okay, here we go. We got this mitered out. Now at this point, the frame is finished. Now if you use a channel back here, you can always select it in the macro. There is a channel that goes with this system, but just for ease of demonstration, I didn't bother to show you that. Okay, so we're at the top. Now look what I'm going to do here. I got to raise this entire group of pans, I got to raise them up. So what I'm going to do is, hold on a second. I'm going to select this guy right here. And I'm going to, that cat's bugging the crap out of me. Okay, I'm going to just isolate this, okay? And I'm going to go to the side. You gotta love this AutoCAD, man. This damn view cube doesn't work half the time, or it just stops working. It's just extremely maddening. But anyway, they haven't fixed it in years, so I don't think it's going to change. Anyway, I got everything. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and select this guy. I'm going to select these. I'm going to move them up a ½ inch. Okay. And that's going to put them where we need to put them. Now, obviously, you can't have them butting up against the extrusion here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to show beam features again. And see, you'll see the cuts for all these pans, if you will. And I'm going to go ahead and select those cuts. Go over here to the Move tool, and I'm going to move those as a group. I'm going to move them, I'd say, well, you know, just for sake of demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and just move them over to the edge of the lip of that extrusion. Let's see how this works. There we go. All right, so we've cut those back, and in actual practice, I would leave a little overhang here, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Again, we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to do a minus this time instead, and go ahead and hit OK, and it should move it over to where it's going to cut those parts down, so that when you have them on your parts list, you've got the cut. Okay, so now if I open the or shade it out again for you, I'm going to go ahead and kill off these beam features, and then we've got this really cool, extremely a lot faster than having to array this stuff and do it all manually. And this is all done with the railing macro. And again, once you create your drawing style for this, you're going to have to go in and change the model roles, but that's no big deal. You can do that pretty quickly. So you can see, and also what you can do is you can create an array of custom components with this thing. Like, let's say you wanted to do some fastener arrays with this thing, just to get the lists on your BOM or whatever. You can do that with custom components as well. You can also, because these are on six inches apart, or they're on a 6-inch center line. Your fastener array will never change. So basically, you can create a couple of different ones that give you odd and even numbers, so that you can have, if you want to go that route, you can have a fastener array across these things, and it'll help you with your accuracy of the bill of materials, that kind of thing. All right, so that's my little workflow secrets video. I imagine some of the advanced users are going to know these kind of tricks, but a lot of you guys first starting out, and a lot of you intermediate people that have been using the program, you're not thinking out of the box. But I'll tell you, this program can do a lot, and this is just one of those things that some people won't bother to tell you, but I'll sure share it with you, because the more that we get advanced steel out there to the masses, the better off we're going to be. Because hopefully the developers will really accelerate their added features and stuff. But anyway, you guys have a great evening, and I hope you enjoy the video.